Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're here today because we're talking about something I know many of you are feeling deep in your bones. Today, we are tackling a question that I know has crossed your mind if you've ever dealt with a toxic personality. What actually hurts a narcissist? On the surface, these individuals often seem invincible and bulletproof. They appear completely immune to the emotional turmoil they cause others. You might feel like you're walking on eggshells. Meanwhile, they stomp around in steel-toed boots, completely unaffected by anything. But the truth is far more complex and, honestly, quite revealing about the fragile nature of their psychology. We are going to peel back the layers of that thick armor. We will look at what truly causes a narcissistic injury. This is not to encourage cruelty. It is to help you understand the dynamic and reclaim your power. When we think about hurting someone, our minds usually go to the conventional methods: shouting back, pointing out their flaws, or trying to beat them at their own game of manipulation. However, I need to tell you right now that these methods almost never work with a narcissist. In fact, they often backfire spectacularly. If you scream at them, you are giving them exactly what they want. They want your emotional reaction. They want your attention. They feed off that energy, whether it is positive or negative. So, the things that truly hurt them, the things that cause deep psychological distress, are usually the complete opposite of what you might expect. It is not about aggression. It is about removing the very things that sustain their false self-image. To understand what hurts them, we first have to understand what keeps them alive psychologically. Think of a narcissist like a hollow statue that can only stand as long as people are looking at it. They don't have a solid core. They are built entirely out of the reflections they see in your eyes. When you look away, the statue starts to crumble. This supply consists of attention, adoration, validation, and even fear or anger. Basically, any external confirmation that they exist and that they are significant. Without this fuel, their engine sputters. Eventually, it dies. They do not have an internal sense of self-worth. They are entirely dependent on the reflection they see in the eyes of others. Therefore, the ultimate pain for a narcissist is not an insult, but the starvation of this essential supply. And this is where the real shift happens. The most powerful thing you can do, the thing that truly stings, is to become completely, utterly indifferent. Nothing cuts deeper than the realization that they simply do not matter to you anymore. When you get angry, you are signaling that they still have the power to control your emotions. But indifference is different. You look at them and feel nothing. No hate, no love, just blankness. And that terrifies them. It shatters the illusion that they are the main character in your movie. Indifference sends the message that they are not special, they are not powerful, and they are not even worth the energy it takes to be upset. You might have heard of the gray rock method, and this is where the psychology of indifference really comes into play. Imagine becoming as boring and uninteresting as a gray rock on the side of the road. When you stop sharing your life, your feelings, and your reactions with them, you are effectively cutting off their oxygen. They will try to provoke you. They will push your buttons. They might even throw tantrums like a toddler. But when those attempts are met with a shrug or a calm, "Okay," it causes a massive internal crisis for them. They are forced to confront the emptiness inside themselves because you are no longer filling it for them. But it's not just about ignoring them. There's something else they guard even more fiercely: their sense of control. To a narcissist, control isn't just a preference, it's their oxygen. These individuals are extreme control freaks. Controlling their environment, and the people in it, is the only way they can maintain their reality. When you start setting boundaries, everything changes. In their eyes, it feels like a rebellion against their regime. If you say no to a request, or if you refuse to be guilt-tripped into doing something you do not want to do, you are striking a blow to their sense of omnipotence. They view others as extensions of themselves, like extra limbs, So when an arm or a leg decides to act independently, it is not just annoying to them, it is fundamentally frightening. Think about what actually happens when you set a boundary. To a narcissist, it's not just a no, it's a declaration of war. For a narcissist, a boundary feels like a personal attack or a rejection. If you tell them, "I will not continue this conversation if you keep yelling," you are establishing that your dignity is more important than their need to vent. This shift in priority is agonizing for them because, in their world, their needs must always come first. By holding firm to your boundaries, you are forcing them to face the reality that they are not the center of the universe. And that is a painful reality check that disrupts their entire worldview. Now, let's talk about the one thing that keeps them up at night. It's the fear of the mask slipping. The moment the world finally sees what's behind the curtain. Narcissists spend an exorbitant amount of energy curating a perfect public image. The charitable neighbor, the perfect parent, the genius boss. They live in constant fear that this mask will slip, and people will see the insecure, frightened child hiding underneath. Sometimes, facts come to light. Those facts contradict their narrative. If they are held accountable in public and cannot spin the story, they experience what is called a narcissistic injury. This is not just embarrassment, it is a deep, searing shame that can lead to rage. And there's a key difference here we need to understand. Guilt is feeling bad about what you did. Shame is feeling bad about who you are. Narcissists rarely feel guilt because they can always rationalize their actions. However, they are governed by shame. Deep down, they carry a heavy burden of inadequacy. When that inadequacy is exposed, when the world sees that they are not as smart, rich, or kind as they pretend to be, it triggers that core shame. That exposure is arguably the thing they fear the most, second only to being ignored. Now, let's talk about your success and happiness. Believe it or not, your ability to thrive without them is incredibly painful for a narcissist. During the relationship, they likely tried to convince you that you were nothing without them, that you needed their guidance, their money, or their status to survive. When you flourish, when you get that promotion, look healthier, or find a partner who treats you with respect, it proves them wrong. It serves as tangible evidence that they were the problem, not the solution. Your happiness is a mirror reflecting their failure to break you. This leads us to the concept of autonomy. Narcissists often view their partners or children as property. When property becomes autonomous and successful, it creates a cognitive dissonance in the narcissist's brain. They cannot reconcile the idea that you are doing well with their belief that they are the source of all good things. They see you smiling. It is a genuine smile. They did not create it. They cannot take it away. And that makes them feel obsolete. It reminds them that they are not the sun around which everyone orbits, but rather a dark cloud that has finally moved on. We also have to discuss the refusal to play the victim. Narcissists love to cast themselves as either the hero or the victim in every story. If they hurt you, they will often twist the narrative so that you made them do it, effectively making themselves the victim of your unreasonable behavior. When you refuse to accept this role, when you calmly state facts and refuse to take responsibility for their actions, it hurts them. You are denying them the absolution they seek. By not accepting the blame, you leave the blame resting squarely on their shoulders, a weight they are desperate to shake off. There is also the pain of being ordinary. Narcissists have a pathological need to be seen as special, unique, or superior. If you treat them like just another regular person, not a villain to be feared, and not a god to be worshipped, it is crushing. To you or me, being called normal is fine, but to a narcissist? Telling them they're just like everyone else is a death sentence to their ego. They would honestly rather be hated as a powerful monster than be looked at as just another face in the crowd. Because to them, being average is the same as being invisible, and invisibility is death. Let's pivot to the idea of the final discard, initiated by you. Usually, the narcissist wants to be the one to end things because it gives them the last word and the feeling of control. When you leave them first, and you do it with finality, it causes a massive injury. It disrupts their cycle of idealize, devalue, and discard. You have essentially rewritten the script of the movie they thought they were directing. This abandonment triggers their deepest, most primal abandonment wounds, which are often the root cause of their disorder in the first place. However, leaving isn't just about physical separation. It is about emotional eviction. You can leave someone physically, but still be obsessed with them mentally, and they can sense that. The real pain for them comes when you evict them from your headspace. When you stop checking their social media, stop asking mutual acquaintances about them, and stop ruminating on their words, you sever the energetic cord. They often have a sixth sense for when you have truly moved on, and that is usually when they try to hover back in. Why? Because your lack of attention hurts, and they want to see if they can still hook you. We must also consider the power of reality. Narcissists live in a fantasy world of their own creation. When you bring conversations back to facts and reality, it makes them deeply uncomfortable. They operate on emotional reasoning. I feel it, therefore it is true. When you counter that with objective truth, calmly and persistently, it creates friction. They cannot manipulate facts as easily as they can manipulate emotions. Being forced to live in the real world, even for a moment, is painful because the real world is a place where they are flawed and accountable. Another subtle thing that hurts them is when you connect with others. Triangulation is a favorite tactic of theirs, where they try to isolate you and pit people against each other. When you build a strong support system, when you mend bridges they tried to burn, and when you have a community that validates your reality, it weakens their hold. They fear a united front. When people start comparing notes, the pattern becomes obvious, and that is a nightmare for a narcissist. Let's touch on the concept of self-love. It sounds cliché, but self-love is the ultimate narcissist repellent. A narcissist looks for insecurities to exploit. They look for cracks in your armor where they can insert their hooks. When you heal those cracks, when you truly love and respect yourself, their tactics simply slide off. It is not that you are trying to hurt them, it is just that their toolkit no longer works on you. This renders them powerless, and for a personality type addicted to power, impotence is painful. I want to address the humor aspect as well. Not mocking them maliciously, but having a sense of humor about the absurdity of their behavior. When they are in a rage or trying to gaslight you, and you can internally, or sometimes externally, laugh at how ridiculous the situation is, it diminishes their stature. They want to be taken seriously. They want to be feared. If you see them as a tantrum-throwing child rather than a scary monster, their power evaporates. Laughter dispels fear, and without fear, they cannot control you. It is also vital to understand that they hate being figured out. Narcissists rely on stealth. They need you to believe that their manipulation is actually love or concern. When you educate yourself, like you are doing right now by reading this, and you can name their tactics, gaslighting, projection, future faking, the game is up. When you can look at them and think, ah, that's love bombing, or there goes the word salad, you are no longer a participant in the game. You are an observer. Being observed and analyzed makes them feel like a bug under a microscope. We are getting close to the end, but I want to remind everyone that the goal here isn't to inflict pain for the sake of revenge. Revenge keeps you tied to them. The pain we are discussing is a byproduct of you getting healthy. The healthier you become, the more it hurts the narcissistic structure, because that structure relies on your sickness and submission. Your healing is toxic to their disorder. It is a paradox. The best thing you can do for yourself is the worst thing you can do for their ego. So, If you are wondering how to win against a narcissist, the answer is to stop playing. Step off the chessboard, take your pieces, and go home. Focus entirely on your own life, your own growth, and your own joy. The moment you realize that you do not need to prove anything to them, you become free. And that freedom, that is the sharpest sword you can wield. They cannot possess someone who belongs entirely to themselves. Let's be real. This process is not easy. It takes time to deprogram yourself from the manipulation. You might feel guilt when you start setting boundaries, or you might feel fear when you go no contact. That is normal. But remember that every step you take away from them is a step toward yourself. The pain they feel from your absence is not your responsibility to fix. It is the natural consequence of their behavior. To summarize, what hurts a narcissist the most is the truth. The truth that they are not superior, the truth that they cannot control you, and the truth that life goes on beautifully without them. You hold that mirror of reality simply by living your best, most authentic life. I know how exhausting this journey is. I know the guilt that creeps in when you finally say no. But please remember, you aren't being cruel. You are just finally being kind to yourself. If this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. I love reading your insights, and I want you to know that you're not alone in this. Your story matters. And if you'd like to stay on this journey of empowerment with me, don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, stay strong, and I will see you in the next one.